I did a sports gambling show for 4 years. I love to look at the gambling markets. Where is money being spent? Where are people deciding that they want to allocate their resources? What should we expect? What are probabilities? I encourage everybody, Buck, all the time, think probabilistically. It's hard to know exactly what's going to happen. And so if you think probabilistically, you think, okay, I think this is likely to happen. This is not likely to happen. Trump has been a real challenge for gambling markets ever since he came down that escalator in 2015. And many of you will remember, Buck, I know you well do because you were in New York at the time, when the New York Times said that Hillary, what was the percentage chance that Hillary was going to win, Buck? 98?
Over 90. I think it was 97.
97% chance that Hillary Clinton was going to win the 2016 presidential election. Trump wins. This is really intriguing, and I think there's a couple of things at play here that I want to unpack and I want to discuss, and I want to see whether you buy it, Buck. Big news here. Donald Trump is now favored to win the 2024 presidential election in gambling markets. A lot of you out there are going to say, okay, explain to me what that means, Clay. Let me contextualize it this way. At no point in the entire 2016 presidential campaign was Trump favored to beat Hillary Clinton. Some of you may well have won money betting on Trump. He was a big underdog in terms of whether or not he was going to be elected president in 2016. He won as an underdog. That happens. Anybody who plays or is involved in sports knows that sometimes the underdog wins. 2020, Buck. Trump was a big favorite for re-election until COVID happened. And in March and April, he went from being the favorite to being an underdog to Joe Biden, and he was never favored to win the 2020 presidential election in the gambling markets. There was one small period early in the evening of election night where the gambling markets became convinced that Trump was going to win based on some of the returns. Some of you are saying, And then the markets flip back. Biden ends up winning. But for most of the 2020 presidential campaign, Joe Biden was favored. And for the entire 2016 presidential campaign, Trump was the underdog. This morning, for the first time in his presidential career, Donald Trump is now the favored candidate to be the next elected president of the United States. Okay, that is a fact. Why? I got a couple of theories here, Buck. One, there have been several polls that are very favorable to Trump. The Messenger poll, I know you know the guys at the Messenger pretty well, had Trump up 5. The Washington Post had him up 10. Trump has a lead in polling, which is very rare for Trump, even if it is a small lead. On top of that, this is what I really think is moving markets, Buck. There's a lot of fear in Democrat circles that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is going to run as the Libertarian candidate. That he is frustrated with what the DNC has done to try to box him out in running against Joe Biden, and that he is preparing to announce that he will be the Libertarian candidate for president in 2024. And there are even quotes from him that I was reading late last night, Buck, and we need to get RFK Jr. back on this program because I read some of these quotes and they were fairly interesting. He said he's going to have to make his decision, Buck, by October, meaning RFK Jr., as to whether or not he wants to be the nominee going forward. And if that is true, the data reflects that RFK Jr. actually is a massive hit to Democrats, and that basically would end, in many ways, Joe Biden's opportunity to be the president of the United States. So these are big movements. I don't know how much attention it's going to get in the media. I think it's worth paying attention to. What is your reaction?
Right now, it's speculation, right? So it's really tough to know.
But it's speculation with money, which is why I pay attention to it. People are putting their real money down.
But I remember that what the betting odds were telling us in the 2022 midterms, which we talked about a lot. And if you had placed a lot of money based on who was favored to win in the key races who were Republicans, let's just say you'd better get your side hustle going on because it was a rough time for your bank account. So the betting markets, I think, are just a function. This is kind of obvious, but it's a function of what perception may be at any point in time. So right now the perception is Biden is at an absolute low point. He's at a low point in terms of the polling. He's at a low point in terms of narrative, campaign machinery. And I think there is a real conversation going on among people who matter and make decisions at the top ranks of the Democrat Party. The donors, the big organizations and entities, it's behind closed doors. But I think there is definitely concern. To be clear, I've never thought that they're like, oh, yeah, it's Biden because he's great. I just think that this is all they got, basically. That's been my theory all along. Like they wish they had another approach, which we'll get to did you see the Kamala, what is it called when you have the words, word map? The Kamala word map that came out.
I didn't see it, but I can only imagine how great that is.
We'll talk about that one in the next segment. But it's, when you ask people, what are the words that come to mind when you ask them about Kamala Harris? The words are not amazing, leadership, brilliant. Those are not the words. So they've got themselves in a difficult situation. I think the RFK Jr. stuff is interesting. He would have to start again quickly because to get on the ballots in all these places, that would have to happen relatively soon here. You're not going to be able to get on the national ballots for 2024 if you launch a campaign or if you officially start trying to do that in January. So there's some lead time. It's almost October. So we are really now at the very last moment. This is the 11th hour of a big switch. I believe it was on our good friend Sean Hannity's show. I think this just happened last night. So I hate when I see a tweet and it turns out it's from 6 months ago. But I think Ted Cruz, that happens to me all the time. I'm like,
they
you guys
recircle, news.
Do you
a
see
lot.
this amazing story? I sent it to the team. They're like, Buck, that's from 2020. I'm like, damn it. But anyway, Ted Cruz raised at some point in recent history the Michelle Obama possibility as well. I view that as almost more. I think that a candidate that is a Democrat consensus candidate forced by the system. Remember with Hillary and the superdelegates, and they had to get rid of it because it was so obviously rigged in 2016 against Bernie. Democrats are very good at this. They have a real capability to move as the hive mind declares. I think it's much more likely they would effectively drop in somebody for Biden than to have an open primary. Clay, an open primary would be an abject mess for Democrats. I mean, that to me is crazy. And it's effective. What's up? I mean, amazing for us. Yeah. But it would effectively be handing, I think any Republican would be in a super strong position to win any of the top Republican contenders, and including obviously Donald Trump right now. So there's a lot of these pieces that are moving around, but I just caution everybody. It doesn't matter what perception is right now. It doesn't matter what the polls are right now. We have not seen what the campaign will be, and we are entering a year. People usually overstate this stuff, Clay. They'll say, this is the most important election in the history. And I'm not going to say this is the most important election, although maybe the country's over if we lose. But what I will say is we are heading into the unprecedented situation of an election where the primary contender, the primary opponent to the president in power is facing, I don't know if the trials will happen or not. We've talked about this. I think 1 or 2. You think maybe 1. Fine. Facing 4 felony indictments in the election year. So whatever we think the roadmap, there is no roadmap. There is no precedent for this. And so that's why I think, it's almost more helpful to look at where we are right now, because I think where we'll be in 6 months is going to be different, and where we are in a year might feel like we're in a different universe. Well,
what I would say is significant in the next month is RFK Jr. said if he's going to run as a libertarian, he needs to make the decision by mid-October.
Can I ask you not to, but to your logic about Pritzker, why wouldn't RFK Jr. run? You asked us about Pritzker, and I say because I think he likes to be liked at cocktail parties, and he wants to run next time. Why wouldn't RFK Jr. run, given what he's already done?
I can't think of a reason why he wouldn't.